Hi, this is Tyson with JavaScript Vignettes, and today we're going to be looking at building a basic list view with React Native. So in our previous videos, we looked at how you can do debugging with React Native, and before that we looked at how to create an app that you can run on iOS and Android. So for this lesson, we're just going to be looking at using it on the iPhone because it's hard to keep track of two different things at once, especially on a video. But just know that if you need to go back and look at those, they're always available. So to start out with, I hard-coded some data here. So this is just 6 different characters that we're going to import and use for our little list view. So we're going to make a new folder now. We're going to call this Greens, and this will be our listing screen. So we'll call it listing.js. And then we're going to go back to our app and we're going to import it. So we're going to import listing from screens/listing. And I'm just going to render it inside of this other component. So the app is just going to be basically a container at this point that renders a listing. We don't need text anymore. And we actually need to make a component here. So we're going to import React from React. And we're going to import the view, the text component, style sheet. Yeah, that'd be a good start, from React Native. So now we're going to make our actual component. So we're going to make a function called listing, and listing is going to wrap a view, and we're going to take some props, and we'll look at that in a second, how we pass those in. But we'll say props.people.map. So each person will, this is going to map over each person. So we're going to pass each of the people from our data into here, and it's going to map over each one. And then it's going to render a view for them with a key of the person.id. And it's important when you're mapping over something that you give it a key, because that way it'll know what to reference, so it doesn't get lost. And so it knows whenever you're re-rendering rows and things like that, that it knows what place it is at. And to start out with, we're just going to render the text with the person's name. So we're going to say person.name text. And it's going to say that it can't read the property map of undefined because people is not a defined value yet. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a new higher order component. We're going to go to new folder. We're going to create HOCs, which is short for higher order components. And we're going to make a file called withpeople.js. And so that's going to be people. It's going to take a component because it's a higher order component, and then that component is going to render a class which extends react.component. And of course, we'll need to import React component. Import React from React. And so when that renders, we're going to return the component that we've received. So that's this component right here, whatever we're passing into it. And we're going to spread actually, instead of spreading, we're going to say people equals, and we'll just give it an empty array for now. We'll get the people in here in a second. So now we're going to export our with people module. And so now if we go back over with module with people. So now if we go back over to our listing, we can wrap that with people. So we'll need to import that. So let's say import with people from hoc/with people. And that's going to import our people. And right now that's just an empty array, so that's why it's rendering empty. But it's not throwing an error anymore, so that's important to look at. And remember, the component that it's taking is just the first thing we're passing into this function. So we're passing in the listing, and so it's going to be rendering. It's going to be passing props onto the component. And if we want to be able to inherit props, which this is a good practice with any higher order component, we're going to want to spread the this.props, which right now is nothing, but it could be something. So what we want to do is we want to get the people from data, and for now we're just going to get them synchronously. It's a little simpler than going through getting them asynchronously, which we can probably look at later in a later video. So we're going to get people from data/people, and I'm just going to replace that array with people. So now you see we have all these people rendering here in this listing view, and there's nothing magic going on here. This is just this array of people, and we're looking at the name. So we're, inside of our text, we're rendering person.name, and so that's basically all that's going on. So the next thing we want to do is we want to style this component a little bit because it's looking kind of crazy. So what we could do, first we'll create a new style sheet. So we got this style sheet we're importing. So we're going to say const styles equals stylesheet.create. And then this is just going to, we pass in an object into the stylesheet.create, and it can be any styles that you want to be able to apply to anything. So we're going to have a container, and we'll give it like a margin top of 100, just so it doesn't look crazy, so that the little bar is it's below it. So we'll say styles dot container. So that's going to get the container style and put it on this outer view. So 100 is a little bit much. We'll bring that down to 50. And now we want to style our listing view, so we'll say style equals styles dot list item. And for this, we're going to give it a background color. Going to give it some padding. And margin bottom of 1. Okay, so this is already starting to look a little bit better. You're starting to be able to see what's going on here. So now what we want to do is we want to use the image for the character. So you see here in this people file, I have an image for each one of these characters. So what I do here for getting an image is I can say, I can import the image from React Native, and then I'll say image source equals, and if you can just require a source, like if you have a image like close to the, like inside of your repo, you can just require it from here, and it'll build it with the React Native code. So you would do like require, the image source / image name dot extension, and that would work actually. So that's one way to do it. But since the images we're using are actually remote, what we're going to do is we're going to pass in a URI. So we're going to pass it in as an object, and we're going to say person.image, And right now you can see that it's actually not displaying anything. We actually need to set a height and a width on the image so that it'll display. So we're going to say style profile image, or styles.profile image. Take that and we're just going to give it a width of 50 and a height of 50. Alright, so now we actually have images for each of these characters. So now the next thing we're going to do is we wouldn't want this text to be underneath the character. We want it to actually be next to it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the individual list item and we're going to say flex direction is row. So this is going to make it, instead of flexing, because every component in React Native flexes by default, and so instead of it flexing from up to down, it's going to flex from left to right, like horizontally. You notice that the text is kind of at the top now. So one thing you can do is you could say align items center, and that'll center all the items inside of this individual row. So next we probably don't want this text to like be butting up against the image. So what we can do is actually add a style to the text. So we'll say styles dot name, and we can give it padding left of probably like 12 pixels or so. So that'll give us a little bit of padding. And while we're here, we can actually style the image too, or we can style the text too. So we can do things like we could say color, change the color to whatever we want it to be. We could make it bold. So the next thing we would want to do, let's say that maybe we want the description to show up on here too. So we're going to make another view. This is going to wrap the text, so that this view is going to be what is being flexed instead of the text itself. And so that's going to, underneath that, we're going to make another text, and this one we're going to do person.bio. It's just another thing coming from our data. And now we have our bio text, and we're going to style that also. So we're going to do style equals styles.bio. So we'll do a padding left of 12, padding top of 12. Padding right of 12. Actually, that's not nearly enough. Somewhere in that range, maybe 50. Okay. Now, at this point, we probably don't want our image being centered because the way that this is being laid out now, we probably want the image to be at the top. So instead of doing align item center, we can just take that off. And we'll probably want to put a little margin on top of our image so that it's not quite on top of everything. Margin top. So you can just play with it until it gets to where you want it to be. And maybe we'll make the font size on the name a little bit bigger so we can do that using font size 18 or something.